Hey guys, Scott here. There's been a lot of doom and gloom in the DBD community recently with the PTB that is very, very survivor-sided. Just be honest with it. There is really no new content coming. We were promised lots of bug fixes, but a lot of stuff hasn't happened there. So there's been a lot of justified, very understandable negativity. Today I thought I'd do something a bit more silly and laid back. I saw this Japanese killer tier list a couple of days ago. I wanted to make a video on it as I saw it, but a couple of things came up and I didn't get the chance to do it, but I saved it and I'm going to take a look at it now. And some of the placements on here were absolutely insane to me, and I thought you guys might get a kick out of it. Now, before I go further and tear into this a little bit, I want to make it clear that I don't know this website. I don't know the reputation of it. For all I know, this is Japan's equivalent to IGN, and I'm basically saying Japanese players think that IGN's guide is the accurate guide. So it's entirely possible that this is just a very silly website that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. So I just want to make that clear. I have no idea the reputation behind this website. So I'm not trying to make a blanket statement about Japan or anyone that plays DBD in Japan or anything like that. This is just what I saw, and a lot of people had seen it. So at the very least, it's popular. Doesn't mean it's correct, but it's definitely popular. So let's just go right into it, I guess. They had a couple of, strangely translated criteria here. I just used Google Translate, but it doesn't really help me too much. Therefore, the strongest killer ranking, we highly appreciate killers that are more stable and easy to annihilate. That basically means killers that are able to kill survivors as easily as possible and consistently as possible. And then apparently there's something called a mackerel, which assumes 4 players for 2,000 hours. This is the important part. It means they're basing their tier list off of pretty advanced players. I'd say once you get to the 2,000 hour mark, you start to become a pretty advanced player. Obviously, you're not in the comp level, but you definitely understand the game pretty well at that point. So they're not balancing it around for new players. This is for people that understand the game at the very least. They also wanted to talk about item usage and how, I'm guessing this is add-on related, killers that are more or less add-on dependent, things like that. But all that being said, let's go into it. So right off the bat, we have Nurse at the start. Nurse at the start is completely understandable. I think everyone would agree Nurse is 1 or 2, and she will probably be 1 or 2 until the game dies. So that one's fair. Now, above Blight is the Twins, which is kind of crazy to me because the Twins is very good, but is a bit more counterable than Blight, in my opinion. Now, I do think Twins is a lot better than people give her credit for. I think she's probably in the top 4 or 5. She's extremely good, but I would not say she's better than Blight. A lot of people underestimate Twins because they just simply don't encounter any Twins, but in the hands of an extremely good Twins player, that is likely the most miserable match of DBD you're going to have unless you are a strict 4-man with extremely good, clear communication and, advanced techniques to deal with the good Twins. But Twins is absolutely a destroyer of most lobbies, and I am very grateful that more people do not play her because of that. But that being said, I would not say she's above Blight, but, she's not so far gone here that this is an outrageous place to put her. So right next to him is the Bright, which I just feel racist saying that, but they don't have the letter L in Japan, so that's just literally how you say it. But Blight being there, obviously no one's going to argue that. That one's completely fine. Here's where we start getting weird. Right after Blight, we have Vecna, who is a good killer. Don't get me wrong. Vecna is pretty solid, but is not at all S tier. Vecna has a very clear flowchart of things that he does at loops, and it's strong. Don't get me wrong. Again, Vecna, with his buffs, has become a very solid killer with pretty decent map control, pretty good anti-loop, but he doesn't have the crazy snowball that every other killer in this tier has. And I think the snowball potential is very, very important in determining the S tier killers. S tier killers can down, win. Vecna has built-in cooldowns to where he physically cannot do that. The game hard locks him from snowballing. And due to that fact, I don't think he can be an S tier. You could even argue that he's low A tier, and that would be fine. But S tier, absolutely not. No way. Now, Karasu, I think I'm not sure if this is before or after the nerfs. If this was before the nerfs, honestly, Karasu would be here. After the nerfs, I'd say she'd be more here-ish region. Still very good, but I would say no longer S tier. So I'm not exactly sure when this was made. It's possible. I'm not going to comment any further than that because I don't know when that was made, but she's, closely related to here, and that's fine. Spirit, again, very good killer. A lot of people agree that she's A tier. I definitely think killers like Dracula and Ghoul are better for sure. But Spirit is definitely not bad. The only real downside to Spirit is that she is incredibly add-on reliant. If you have ever tried playing Spirit without Rusty Flute or any cooldown compensation, she feels kind of not great because her cooldown is ass. by default. Rusty Flute gives such a massive boost to cooldown recovery that I'm surprised they haven't done the standard behavior special, which is implement some of it base kit and then take some away from the add-on. So I'm surprised they haven't done that, because she basically needs some type of cooldown reduction or she's going to have a really rough time. Dracula and Ghoul being an A tier, I'm completely okay with. Honestly, these two are like, kind of above Spirit, like right here, right at the top of A tier, in my opinion. Very, very solid killers. And then we have Wraith, who's just somehow weaseled his way in here, which is crazy to me. That I don't understand either. I do think Wraith is a lot better than people give him credit for, but I think he's like high B tier. His chase is pretty good. His map control is pretty good. His gen pressure is pretty good. He's kind of just pretty good. He's just good. He's just pretty good at everything. And he doesn't really have any bad maps or anything like that, but he's not exceptional at anything. And to be in these tiers, you need to be exceptional at least something. He's really not exceptional at anything. He's just pretty good at everything. That's why I love Wraith. Wraith doesn't really have any bad maps. He doesn't really suffer from going against any particular builds or anything like that. He can use a lot of builds. He's just pleasant to play. He's just an overall enjoyable killer that doesn't rely too much on mechanical skill, and he just has pretty decent results kind of no matter what you do. So I think he's always been a very good example of like a top tier B tier killer. But putting him in A, like around Ghoul and Dracula, no, definitely not. I would say Singularity should be like up here as well. Singularity is a very solid killer, without a doubt better than the Wraith. But overall, pretty close. Wraith is really the main outlier in this area so far. Plague being kind of in bottom in A tier, I think I'm okay with that as well. Plague is pretty damn good. She does struggle with really optimal usage of fountains and using fountains that are far away or fountains that are near gens that have been completed, so it's kind of a slog for her to get there. But then the Apple add-ons can kind of circumvent that. She is a master of proxy camping. She kind of forces people to use fountains if she does proxy camp, because if she has, Corrupt Purge up, or she's just, in the general area and everyone's permanently injured, you can't really save. So someone has to go use a fountain, and that's kind of what makes the dynamic of going against Plague pretty interesting, at least in terms of when to use fountains and where to use them. So other than that, though, she is a very solid killer, and I would definitely agree that she is low A tier. I would definitely not agree that Pinhead is low A tier. I would say Pinhead is more like mid B tier. Like with the PTB changes, he's going to be like maybe even like down here. I don't know. But Pinhead is definitely not A tier in my opinion. He's got pretty decent map control, but his power is, in my opinion, wildly inconsistent. Hi, buddy. Very inconsistent, and you kind of need Impaling Wire to get really solid use of Anti-Loop. And the crazy tunneling add-on he had maybe is what is boosting him here, because that was pretty good. And I don't know if like there's a super heavy tunnel meta there, I'm not sure, then maybe I could see that boosting him up a little bit, because he is extremely good currently at tunneling with that particular add-on, but that add-on is getting gutted completely. So maybe that's what they're basing that off of. I would just have to take a guess. I'm really, really not sure. But even with that, I still wouldn't consider him A tier. Next in B tier, we have Dredge. I think Dredge is dog shit. I think Dredge is a shitty, shitty killer. He's aesthetically one of my favorite, probably my favorite in the entire game, and the vibes of Dredge are so cool, but he is a terrible killer. He's just simply not good. Every time you see someone going over like, dude, look how strong this Dredge was. Every time, Dredge Showcase, dude, they beat a comp team. What map is it on? Midwich, every time. Yes, he is good on Midwich. Yay, Dredge. He's good on like 3 maps. Every other map, he's just not a good killer. His power is a loose 50-50 with a pretty significant cooldown, and his map control is stifled by going like this on a lock. He's just not a good killer. Dredge is, without a doubt, he's like down here in C tier, in my opinion. Knight, I could say, is a possible B tier. That's fine. I think he's got pretty decent map control, pretty decent but very specific chase. I would say Knight could be like kind of like a mid B tier killer. That's fine. Freddy, I think I would agree with too, is kind of like mid B tier, maybe a bit higher. He would definitely be above Dredge. Freddy's pretty decent map control, pretty decent anti-loop, just pretty decent overall. Nothing very interesting going on about him, but overall he's a pretty decent killer, so mid B tier is fine. Oni, I would definitely say is closer to A than to B. He would be like here or like here in my opinion. So a little off with Oni there, in my opinion. Shape being B tier now, I think I would agree with that. I would actually argue Myers is closer to top of B tier now, especially with the recent changes he's gotten to his dash attack. So, yeah, honestly, he is B tier, but I would say he's definitely higher B tier now. He's a surprisingly Myers somehow swindled himself after 9 years into being a pretty good killer, so that's kind of crazy. Then we have the C tiers, the regions. I'm just going to say what the killers are because I'm just going to feel racist every time. Legion. I like how they put an S there, like there's multiple. Legion, I would agree, is C tier. Legion is definitely a lower tier pub stomper, and once you start getting to more advanced players, Legion has no real ability to down players in any meaningful way. Obviously, you throw on Eerie Button and Spirit Fury and Bamboozle, and you stack on 4 chase perks and things like that. Then suddenly he can get downs a lot faster, but then you got no regression and you got that problem. So Legion has never really been a great killer. He's always been perceived as good by the average, casual player because the free hit is something that people associate with an immense amount of strength, but free hit doesn't really do much against good players. You need to down the players, and Legion is just simply not good at that. I would argue Clown is more B tier than C tier. Clown still has pretty damn good anti-loop. Honestly, he has one of the strongest anti-loops in the game. Even the best players on the planet cannot loop a Clown for a very long time. So he has no map control, and that's why he's not that great. But his chase is very good, and I would definitely put him in B tier, so not super far off. Houndmaster being in C tier is wild to me. Houndmaster is actually pretty solid. I would say low A or top of B. The reason I would say maybe top of B is because people are definitely catching on to the fact that you can kind of counter the dog by sitting in a pallet and waiting for her to send it off and then stunning the dog immediately. It's very boring counterplay, but it's pretty effective. Like, you can't deny that. That is pretty strong. That being said, she still has pretty damn good map control with the crazy haste she gets with chase. She can actually use the haste in chases as well if the loop is very short and she doesn't want to use the dog as an actual projectile. She's definitely multifaceted, has some counterplay. And really, the only thing that stops her from being like higher A tier, in my opinion, is she's still buggy beyond belief. She has never, ever worked properly, and I don't think she ever will. So I would say she's definitely B tier, but she's kind of get done dirty here in C tier. That's too low. Doctor being in C tier, I do agree with. Doctor's kind of shit. He's pretty decent at anti-loop, and that's basically all he's got. Doctor is one of those killers that will eventually hit you at basically every tile in the game, but the amount of time it takes to get to that position, shocking, getting a bit closer, shocking, getting a bit closer, shocking, getting a bit closer, it just takes too long to do it. He's very consistent at getting hits, but consistency in slow hits is not enough to make you a good killer, so I'd agree with Doctor being in C. Here is where I think Japan started smoking some crack. Why the fuck is Billy in C tier? Billy is like here. He's S tier. Or like top of A tier. Billy is extremely strong. Still one of the best map controls in the entire game. A good curve Billy has very solid anti-loop as well. I would take the argument that because the palette density changes have made it so there's an abundance of filler palettes, he would drop out of S tier and then kind of like settle in A. I could accept that. That's fine. But he has way too much lethality, way too much map control to be anywhere near C tier. I don't know what the hell's going on there, but C tier for Billy is ridiculous because he's just way too lethal and he has way too much ability to slug and go across the map, slug, go across the map. He's just the map control. A killer with that much map control cannot be C tier. He just can't be. Even if his chainsaw couldn't down people, I don't think he'd be C tier. He'd be like a low B at that point. Trapper being C tier, I think that's fair. I think Trapper with like double Eerie add-ons is unironically B tier, but Trapper with your average add-ons is pretty C tier. That's completely fair. Hag is probably better than Trapper though, so I would definitely say Hag is more like up here. Hag is really not that great, and it's kind of hard to say. Against a solid team, Hag is pretty not good, like at all. But so many people don't even know how to play against Hag that she's like, her potency is inflated due to how scarce people actually encounter her. So I think she's definitely not as good as a lot of people might think, but I would think she's definitely better than this. She would be like top of C or low B in my opinion. That's a little harsh. Pig being C is, I think, it's kind of hard to say. I would say Pig honestly is like more of a very bottom of B tier because her anti-loop is actually pretty decent. Her built-in slowdown is pretty decent. I'd say overall she's just kind of decent now. Even her crouching speed is better now. She's just a pretty decent killer. Again, nothing remarkable. Her map control is pretty terrible, but she's got a built-in slowdown, which is nice, and her anti-loop is actually pretty damn solid now. So I'd say she's like a bottom B tier. Definitely not at the bottom of C tier, in my opinion. Nemesis being C tier makes no sense to me. Nemesis is a very, very solid killer. Top of B. I argue bottom of A, but I mean, realistically, his map control is based on luck. He's bottom of A if you get good luck with your zombies, and top of B if you don't. Nemesis has one of the strongest anti-loops in the entire game. There's basically nothing you can do against a good Nemesis player other than pre-drop and then get behind line of sight before he breaks the pallet. But even then, he's going to break the pallet, and you're not going to gain that much distance. Especially with Marvin's Blood, it just simply takes 2 tentacle hits to get to tier 2, and now you're breaking pallets. Nemesis is definitely not C tier. He is top of B or arguably bottom of A, depending on how lucky you get with zombies. So yeah, that is wildly out of place. Springtrap, I would say, is still more B tier. You could definitely look at him as like a stranger version of Huntress with some more map control, but I would definitely say he's not C tier. I would say, frankly, most killers, in my opinion, fall somewhere in B tier, some variation of B tier. Maybe we just view things a bit differently because they have an E tier, but again, that would just be our F tier. So yeah, I think that's strict. Again, Wesker being C tier is crazy. Again, he's not like, an S tier killer, maybe not even A tier, but he's at the very least at like top of B. His map control is decent, his chase is decent, his built-in slowdown is decent. He's just overall a very solid killer. Of course, he's been nerfed a pretty decent amount since he came out, and some of these were certainly justified, like the full infection off hook was really stupid and things like that. But overall, Wesker's not a C tier killer. He's definitely very solid. Deathslinger, I would even argue, is B tier as well, going against a good Deathslinger. It is extremely hard to loop a very good Deathslinger. He will know how to zone you properly and shoot when it counts. His map control makes him not even close to like A or anything like that. But his lethality in the hands of a very good player is like low B, in my opinion. I think Deathslinger is very lethal in chase, and that's enough to make him have something there. Now we have the D tiers. Cannibal. I would say Bubba is more top of C, low B. Now, again, with the changes to the pallet density, I would definitely kind of understand him being weaker now. So now I would say kind of mid C is probably more fair. But still, the ability to down someone in the open instantly and his ability to proxy camp is basically second to none. He's still the king camper, even if you don't build up the anti-face camp bar. If you see someone running for the save and you rev your saw, by the time you're at the hook, they're both dead anyway. It's still not going to matter. So the fact that he can still do that and he can still slap on Bamboozle to make up for his weakness to Windows, he's still a decent killer. Not great, but he's okay. Unknown being in D tier is kind of harsh in my opinion too. I do think Unknown is not very good, but I would say he's more low B tier than anything. I think he's way too punishing and he expects too much of a player. But in the hands of an extremely good Unknown, he can feel pretty damn oppressive to go against. The problem is the amount it takes to get to that point of being so good at Unknown that he's actually a threat. It's unreasonable in my opinion. He takes too much effort for the reward that he gives. But the reward that he gives is pretty good and definitely not D tier. Pyramid Head being D tier is just, I can't even begin to understand how that is happening. His ability to tunnel is insanely strong. His anti-loop is pretty damn good. His zoning is insanely good. I cannot even begin to understand how we ended up in D tier. I'm not even going to begin to justify it. I don't get it. This is happening now. Yeah, I know. God, where was I? Huntress? Yeah, Huntress. Huntress is probably fine to be about right there. Chucky, I would definitely say, is a little bit better than Huntress. And Xenomorph is... Demo-chan? Okay, why is Demo-chan here? You know what? This is fine. Most of these, I would agree, are, among the weaker killers for sure. I would say Trickster is definitely above a lot of this, though. Trickster is actually pretty decent. And I would say Artist is pretty decent, too. I'd say the only ones that don't really belong here are Trickster and Artist. But Sadako, Ghostface, yeah, these are both Brad. And then we have classic Marchan down here at the bottom, which I think is completely fair. I guess that's going to be it for me. Buddy has decided to just need on me. And you know what? He's taken the priority, and this is what I'm doing for the rest of the day now. I'm just letting him do this, so. Thanks for watching.